Happy Easter, folks. Happy Easter. We hope wherever you are, you're enjoying Easter eggs, family, friends, and maybe a bit of faith.
A bit of faith. That's gotta happen. Sorry.
Good to see the Rock Professor here, and I can assure you, folks, that this is not AI generated. This is real.
The AI. Can you imagine? Can you imagine something as bad as AI generated you and me? That would be scary, wouldn't it?
Oh, look, it'll happen.
Soon we'll be able to send our avatars. Brad, who isn't here, will be able to send his avatar with all his notes.
Unfortunately, Simon, the sad thing with social media, and you and I have seen, not a lot of the nastiness, but we've seen some negative stuff associated with our channel over the years. So it's just a matter of time when people will just take AI and use that, and just use that as another kick in the guts for people, channels, etc. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's like anything, isn't it? I think it needs to be got to grips with more than it needs to be. I mean, I don't know about you. I've had a little go with it. Only a little go, very light skim. It seems quite an interesting thing. That you can use it to to help you along. I mean, I saw some financial guy saying, that what it enables him to do is he doesn't have to spend hours doing research. He can just, put in a question and chat GPT in it, and he can iterate it as well, which is, interesting. And, he said it saves him hours of time because he doesn't, it just will put it in a format that he can use, kind of thing, which I thought,
well, it's going to
I
be
could see
interesting.
that.
Going to be interesting, Rock Professor, to see how that goes. Folks, if you're watching on a replay and you're wondering where Brad, the backdoor man, is, and we see we've got a couple of our very good friends here in the chat. Brad,
we are wondering where he is.
Yeah, he's still part of the show. He hasn't left us. He's just got some things that he's got to do, and he will be back next Sunday. That is for sure. And there's a couple of reasons why I know he'll be back, Simon, because I'm picking a Clapton record, and we know that he's not going to miss us doing an Eric Clapton record. And obviously, here's a biography here. If you guys haven't got it, it's available on a lot of. It's on Kindle, Apple Books, and obviously paperback and hardback. Go and get it and celebrate like us here on the channel the 79th birthday of Eric Clapton, one of the British electric blues geniuses, one of the greatest guitar players alive, and one of the reasons, Simon, why you and I are sitting here doing this show.
Yeah, yes, one of the pillars of the Sunday morning show, the British Electric Blues Show, for sure. But also, I think that his influence. I mean, that's the real thing, isn't it? Everybody talks about it, and it's all true. The John Mayall Blues Breakers, album, with that sound, created British blues rock, and it just did, And everybody else went out and bought Marshalls and 59 Les Pauls to Morning John and Hugh Caldwell. Yes, an hour later. Yeah, we didn't gain anything there, Hugh, did we? But still. But so I mean, I think that's the important thing. One of our greatest guitarists, one of that, you want to, the four greats, Page, Clapton, Beck, Green, you know, you know, as great as anyone. And but I think his influence is kind of goes over those as well with the sound. So yes, happy 79th to Dr. Clapton. We
And
tip
he's
our
still
we
touring.
doff our cap. Yeah, still out there doing it. Well, it's
Still touring, releasing more more music. He's got a
yeah,
single out in relation to what's happening in the Middle East. So check that out, and there's a promise of more to come. So yeah, on behalf of myself, Eric, if you ever watch this, we've said it many times on the channel. If you ever want to come on and participate
we'll
and
have a chat. Yes,
talk about anything that's happened in the past with guys
we're up for it.
that really appreciate what you've done and probably can sort of genuinely ask a couple of interesting questions. Maybe if you want to hang out with some fans, come and join us because yeah, you're a big part of my musical
Yeah,
heritage.
all of them. I mean, all of our musical heritage is really, isn't it? It's it's a thing. And yeah, as I say, his influence cannot be underestimated. Really, is a you know in that arena. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
following on from that,
Brad,
Brad,
bro, if you're watching this, we want to
bro,
say
happy Easter.
happy Easter to you. The Rock Professor's going to do a shout out to everybody in the chat soon, but we've got to do a special shout out to our brother, and like I say, he'll be back next week. We're going to pick a Clapton album to rank. That'll definitely get him here. The Rock Professor's got a couple of things that we're going to talk about.
Yes.
And then I've got another thing that we'll talk about. Then we'll get into the album.
Cool. That's fantastic. So, following on from Eric's 79th birthday, I mean, I don't know if people saw this, but a week ago, Patty Boyd, his old muse from Layla, she sold a lot of memorabilia, including photographs, love letters, and she sold them at where did she sell them? I can't see where she sold them. Anyway, she sold some, including the artwork for Derek and the Dominoes, 1970 album Layla. It was estimated to fetch between 40 and 60,000. Ended up selling for 1,976,000. That's quite a payday, isn't it? That's for one thing. And but yeah, I thought that was quite tied in nicely with his birthday. £2,800,000 raised. So there's some nice things, some nice letters and things. We're sure that it was with Eric's consent that the letters were sold. So, wasn't against his wishes. So hats off to got a nice payday. We all want that, don't we? The other thing I heard this week, I can't remember whether we covered it before, but the the lick to Layla, the little that's beautifully sung by me. It's there's a sort of I was just investigating this week one of the possible sources of that. I don't know if you've come across this, Andrew, before. Um, one of the possible sources I was pointed at was the Everly Brothers doing "Walking the Dog," and James Burton at the end, the coda solo. James Burton does play those sort of that few cluster of notes together. No, I didn't think it was that conclusive, but because he doesn't do the other bit, but it's just a sort of thing. But interesting, nevertheless, to go down the byways of.
Yeah, and Bobby Whitlock mentions that too in one of his videos. So every time we talk about Layla, we always want you to go and check out Bobby Whitlock's channel. He just uploaded a couple of videos recently talking about that as well. So definitely a legend. And Bobby, if you ever want to come on this channel, I've sent a couple of messages to Bobby Simon when we were doing our 50th anniversary shows.
Yeah.
Sent him a couple of emails and some messages, and got a message back from Coco saying thank you but no thank you. So that was great.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's completely fair. Yeah,
Yeah,
stick to their own thing. That's completely fine. At least you
I
got a
get
message
that.
back, and I think that's polite, isn't it? Yeah. All we
Van
ask.
Halen's a big part of this channel, folks, and
Ooh,
if you guys aren't aware of it, Dweezil Zappa is selling some stuff to fund a tour for his music and also the music that his father, obviously Simon, made famous.
yeah.
So check that out if you want. If you're interested, I'll include a link. Dweezil Zappa. I didn't realize this, Simon, but the Zappa legacy, the enterprise, is
Mm.
millions of dollars in debt.
Oh dear. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I don't know why that. What do you know why? Is it?
Well, I'm going to recommend that you go and, if anyone's interested, to go and read the Wikipedia articles. The older brother, no, the younger brother, Erdogan, who's in charge of it. Um, yeah, wanted to charge Dweezil Simon for singing his father's music. There was a charge.
Really?
Yeah. So the kids are fighting
Oh,
a little bit, but yeah, that's interesting, and I think that sort of pulls you into another bit of news before we get into the album of another auction that you were talking about, Simon, coming up.
what was that? You've forgotten already.
Oh no, you've already mentioned it. Sorry,
No,
Patty
it was the
Boyd.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, that's right.
Sorry,
Ah,
sorry, I was in La La Land.
don't do that to me. That's I think I'll come around again. It's like, oh dear. I mentioned one night.
um, yeah. Look, we got a couple of cool cats in him. We don't quite have 10, so we'll save the shout out for the end.
Oh,
We'll just say Happy Easter to you guys. But yeah, we'll do a shout out at the end. We always appreciate the fact that you guys here are joining us. So I think that's the news. Hugh, I'm just having a look on the album that we did last week with you, Hugh, and it's just under 100 views. Simon,
we've got to get to 100. It's in all the
uh,
books.
yeah, it's hold on, Simon. It's 94 views. So I urge you,
Yeah,
please, to go and check out that wonderful show.
yeah.
It was a pleasure having you on, Simon, wasn't it?
That was great. Yeah. He was great. And, it's really nice to get some people mainly in the chat on, talk about their favorite albums and things, and we can rank the tracks and do that. I think it's really good. Yeah, yes, absolutely. We should do. Anybody else wants to come on? John, I'm looking at you. You definitely need to come on and do something with us.
Yeah, 100%. He's at his ex-in-laws. That's interesting. That's interesting that you could be at your ex-in-laws.
clearly didn't part on bad terms, parted on
No.
good terms, which I think is admirable personally. Well done, John. You know, so it's good. It's well managed, clearly. Yeah.
I hope
So
he's having
yes,
Easter dinner there.
well, probably a whole. Oh, yes. Unlike who's it? Gretch has got an Easter ham going. He's wild and
Gretch,
crazy.
Gretch watched it 27 times himself. Thank you, Gretch. Thank you for helping getting our numbers up, brother.
Yeah, testify. But it's
Uh,
well, it's I've never some of the albums we do are kind of quite byways of niche things, aren't they? Not you know. So I think that's fine. Really, we do them for our enjoyment.
yeah. Well, what have you got
Not
there?
somebody else's. Well, and talking niche things. So this is the album we're doing this week, Taj Mahal, first Taj Mahal album, and on the cool vinyl. This is a really good copy of it actually. I'm quite impressed with myself that somehow I managed to get quite an early copy with kind of nice heavy vinyl. and it sounds great on my stereo. I've been playing it this week on the old stereo, and yeah, it sounds great. But yeah, a fine record, and which we're going to do this week. But you see the list. There's a long list of people we need to do. And Gretch, is it your birthday, Gretch? Not necessarily, because Easter moves about, doesn't it? It's about. Have you seen that? It's the most complicated calculation to arrive at Easter Sunday ever, isn't it? Have you seen that? It's extraordinary. The calculation that you have to do for Easter. It's weird. It's just the 5 days after the equinox of the this, that, and the other. See, Easter is celebrated on the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon, which is the first full moon on or after the 21st of March. Determining this date in advance requires a correlation between the lunar months and the solar year. I mean, get your calculators out, kids, to just to find out when Easter is. Extraordinary. Well, happy Easter, Gretch, if it should be today or if it's sometime in the near future. So we've covered it. So yeah, that's always amused me, the wild and crazy calculation of finding out when Easter was. Kind of invented that. But anyway, shall we begin, Mr. Orme? Shall we get into it? Do a bit of intro. Got a bit of intro.
Sure.
For a while, for some reason I couldn't find anything information. There didn't seem to be a Wikipedia page about this album at all or anything. But there is one, but it doesn't have very much information on it. But I just thought I'd have a quick run through of a bit of a background to Taj Mahal, because if people aren't familiar, and it's quite possible you're not familiar with Taj Mahal, he was born Henry St. Clair Fredericks Jr. on the 17th of May 1942 in Harlem, but he grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts. His father was an Afro-Caribbean jazz arranger and piano player, who worked with a lot of people, including Ella Fitzgerald, called him the genius, which is quite an accolade. And he basically, because his mother sang as well in a choir, so he brought up in a musical family, lots of jazz around as well. Charlie Mingus, Thelonious Monk, Milt Jackson, and when he was 11, his father was killed in an accident at his construction company. He was crushed by a tractor. So his mother later remarried, and his stepfather owned a guitar, which Taj Mahal started playing at the age of 13 or 14, and got lessons from a neighbour across the road, called Linwood Perry, who was the nephew of Arthur Big Boy Crudup, and, famous name in rock and roll. But, I mean, he pursued his passions, but he sort of, like a lot of people, he became a dairy farmer. So whilst he was getting his musical chops together, he chose his name from a dream he had about Mahatma Gandhi, and clearly Taj Mahal is the temple in India, Agra in India, and and then he started attending the University of Massachusetts. But his musical his musical ambitions overtook the agricultural course he was going on, and he had a rhythm and blues band in college, Taj Mahal and the Electras, and then he headed out to the West Coast to continue. He had a band called the Rising Suns, quite a well-known band called the Rising Suns with Ry Cooder. Hence Ry Cooder's on this record. It's the rhythm guitar player. That's quite funny, isn't it? But so it's released in 1968. This album recorded in multiple locations between New York and Los Angeles, and it showcases his talents as a multi-instrumentalist and his deep understanding of various musical traditions, blues, R&B, soul, etc., which come out. Recorded in '67, it contained blues songs by Sleepy John Estes, Robert Johnson, Sonny Boy Williamson, and reworking them in contemporary blues and folk rock styles. And also included is Taj Mahal's adaptation of Statesboro Blues, which inspired the Allman Brothers, Wayne Allman. There's a famous story about that, which we'll get to. Taj Mahal, he does mainly vocals and harmonica, but he's backed by another guitar player called Jesse Edwin Davis. I don't know if you come across him. He's quite well known in the he's in sort of in the sphere of Eric Clapton, John Lennon, George Harrison. He was around all those people in the late 60s. Played on the first four Taj Mahal songs. Played with Taj Mahal on the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus. He was in that band. Taj Mahal was a guest of that, and yeah, he made some albums, and he guested on things like Bob Dylan's 1971 single "Watching the River Flow," and he's also performed at Concert for Bangladesh, Madison Square Garden, with Ringo Starr. But various other people sadly got involved in drunk and alcohol addiction and died aged 44, which is in 1988. So kind of, I don't know, a life cut short, really, musical life cut short. But he's, as we'll see, he's a great player, and it'll be he's all over this record, so it's fantastic. So yeah, I should say the album cover, this album cover here, apparently is features on what known as the Salt Box, was once located in Bunker Hill Avenue in Los Angeles' Bunker Hill neighborhood. Designated as a city landmark in 1962, was one of only two homes that was saved and relocated, only for both to be destroyed by an arson caused fire in 1969 whilst awaiting restoration at a future site of the Heritage Square Museum. Bunker Hill Avenue no longer exists, and the entire two-block area around the home's original location is now the site of the Wells Fargo Center. But there's Taj sitting on a chair outside the front of it. Amazing. Yes. So, still say the album is produced by Dave Rubinson and Bob Irwin. Rubinson has had a long career in production. Produced Santana. He produced their first album, Santana. Moby Grape, Skip Spence Orr. You ever come across that record? Herbie Hancock, the Pointer Sisters, the Meters, lots of people. Right, in the lots of Herbie Hancock. Him and Herbie Hancock clearly had a long and fruitful working relationship. Anyway, that's a little about Taj and quite a little about the album, where it was recorded. But it's cool. Any questions, Mr. Walton?
No, sir.
No Cherie, no Cherie. So, okay, hold on. Move my lighting around. Very important. So yes. So let's say one have a question. We'll get into the album. This one. So with the first track on it is an album. There's a song called "Leaving Trunk" by Sleepy John Estes. As you can tell, leaving trunk is about luggage that you pack up when you're leaving somebody. It's got the band, which is Jesse Edwin Davis on lead guitar, Ry Cooder on rhythm guitar, James Thomas on bass, Sanford Konikoff on drums, and Taj Mahal on lead vocals and harp. So it starts off with the harp playing, it's kind of blasting call to arms to the start, and then it's got the guitar playing. Most of the songs on here are quite classic 12-bar blues, aren't they? They're not straight up, but they have a kind of rock edge to them that I think will be interesting to explore. I think the production is fantastic, and certainly, and it's in a sort of interesting contrast to last week. The bass playing is right up the front. I love the bass playing on this record. The bass playing is brilliant, and right up there, right in the front. The drums are a bit further back because that's the way you have to mix things in vinyl. Not everything could be louder than everything else, but that having that bass, the bottom end kind of more boosted, was a really interesting contrast to last week with the Robert Cray, where the bass was kind of quite tight in a little pocket, not quite so. But Nice choppy guitars from Rykuder. I think it's just really a rhythm guitar player on this. Great bass playing. Two guitars, one kind of on the edge of breakup, and one very clean as well. So it's kind of using those two things. Nice harp solo from Taj. He's a great harp player and blast it out with great energy and some nice soloing at the end from Jesse Edwin Davis. Really cool, classic pentatonic stuff. But again, kind of with a rock edge to them, which I think this album is an early proponent of that kind of, kind of updating the blues sound, that Chicago blues sound as well. I gave this 9 out of 10. Never a skip. Great opening salvo. Andrew.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this album. I've been listening to this album for 20 years. It's been
Late comer.
a big part of my musical journey for a long, long time. In fact, it's probably the go-to album that I would recommend anyone. If you want to check out Taj Mahal, go and check it out. And obviously, one of the key reasons why I got pointed in the direction of this album is the Allman Brothers. Back 20, 30 years ago, we were getting guitar magazines and there were always references to other albums in printed form. So when they started talking about Taj Mahal, you need to check that out. Plus, I had an uncle who went and saw Taj Mahal when he toured New Zealand in the
Nice.
early 1980s. He was one of the feature acts at a musical festival here called Nambassa. Now, I was really young. I couldn't go. I would have been 10 or 11 or something like that. But I do remember people being around saying, wow, this guy was a legend. So, to go and check him out. And then obviously I saw snips of him playing with the Rolling Stones and blew the Rolling Stones away. Him and another band blew the Rolling Stones away in, what is it?
Well, the Rock and
What
Roll
was it?
Circus.
Rock and Roll Circus, yeah.
Yeah.
Blew the
Yeah.
Stones away. One of the reasons why the Stones didn't release the album for a long, long time. But yeah, I agree with you, Simon. I'm very familiar with this album. I think it's a masterpiece, and I'm glad that you picked it. So the first track in 1968, 1967, when it was recorded. What you have to remember, I think, from my point of view, is it was a modern pickup on classic blues.
Yeah.
Now, today, it would be considered a classic blues album, and it is. But in 67, 68, for a black guy to pick up this album and go with it and give it that classic, authentic blues feel, Simon. But he also busted it through by giving it a bit of a funk feel before funk became something. And it's evident on that first track. It's fantastic. It's mind blowing. And we can talk a little bit more about the tracks as we progress. But I think for an opening track on this album, and it gives you an instant direction of where it's going. It's fantastic. Never a skip. I love the authentic feel of it, and there's no pretentiousness with it. And the reason why I say that, Simon, is I think that some of these acts around this time were kind of leaning in that direction, But Taj Mahal was, I think, heavily influenced by a lot of the white rock and roll guys, as you said in your intro, So he wanted that edge, and he's kept that edge, if that makes any sense. And I think the album proves it. I too have given this a 9 out of 10, and one of the reasons why, Simon, we like to mention this early on, don't we? If there's an album that's very dear to us, we want to make sure that we're giving it the right, what is it, mojo, Simon? The right mojo. But yeah, definitely a 9 out of 10. Can't quite give it a 10, but boy, what an opening track.
It's great, which sets the tone for the album, and as you say, it has, that, and I think Sleepy John Estes clearly is a kind of sort of acoustic guitar kind of bluesman. So he's updating them into the electric age, if you like, isn't he? Into the modern, and of course this is right up there with right in the mix with Clapton's The Beano Albums a bit before, but certainly Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and we've done them on the show. It's kind of right in there with that that early American rockier blues sound. I think it's important. Gret7 says, first time for me, enjoyed it very much. Well, that's fantastic, Gret. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think for me, part of the thing about these shows that we do is, if you haven't heard something, you might find out whether you like it or not. You can not listen to us, you can go listen to the record, which is fine as a thing. And I kind of feel that we pointed people in the direction of new things that they might find interesting, and that's fantastic. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's great. Morning to Jimmy Ray Hawkins as well. He's in 11:13 Orange County, California. Could be worse, Jimmy. So the second track is Statesboro Blues, which is a classic these days, isn't it? Absolute sort of blues classic. Everybody's covered it. The Blind Willie McTell song, and it kind of. But I think in '67, Taj Mahal, he was the first person to kind of modernize it away from the sort of country blues thing. Let's listen to the country blues Blind Willie McTell version. It's and it's this is definitely an update on it. He had recorded it earlier as a member of the group The Rising Suns in '65, '66 with Ry Cooder. Ry Cooder did the Rising Suns with him, and I think it's that his arrangement of this is credited with inspiring the Allman Brothers bands, with their version of it. And if you go and listen to it, it's not that different really. The story goes that while Dwayne had a cold, his brother Greg stopped by his place and dropped off two items: a bottle of Corodicine and a copy of Taj Mahal to help him recover. And he went back later, and he was using the bottle to to play the album. I don't know how true that is, but it's a great story. And I think that's that when you play it, you can hear that. If you go and listen to the other version, and that as you can hear, Jesse Andrews plays that classic slide opening that we all know, and you've heard 1,000 times before by 1,000 bands. But I think probably first done here and everything else. And there's some loping drums and some pretty sort of just holding down the root note on the bass, just not going bad. On other tracks, he really lays it down, the bass player, James Thompson, Thomas, but he's fantastic. But and then it's really about the song. It's got a great melodic song, and of course those slide licks, the corner response with his slide licks, just oh nice. Gretch, that's fantastic. Look at that. Pleased to be your cool elder cousin. Don't know about a cool bit. So yeah, chugging, Raikuda just playing that chugging rhythm guitar in the background, whilst Jesse Davis and a lovely, beautiful, controlled, melodic slide solo at 1:38 from Jesse Edwin Davis. But really nice thick sound as well, really smooth sound. I don't know what he's playing, but my guess is we've got some sort of Fender and some sort of Gibson going on, the two of them. And, but 10 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. A great version, a great updating of it, and setting a template by which all other bands will play it by. Andrew.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece. The song by itself, it's fantastic. It can't be denied its importance and its role, and what it did for, as the rock professor said, for the Allman Brothers. A huge album, huge track, and Jesse's slide work on this is just fantastic. Delicate notes, but it comes through really well on the recording. besides just playing the track and those notes, it's a wonderful example of how brilliant these guys were recording this great music back then. You can hear each element, each instrument on this track. It can't be denied the power of this track. I've given this a Brad score
Yes.
for for that reason. It's just uh, yeah, it's in the top 10 of greatest blues tracks in my opinion. If you haven't heard it, go and check it out. I know that when we did the Allman Brothers live album, we made reference to this, all of us, all three of us, and all three of us checked it out and knew this song. So definitely worth taking that extra 5 minutes from your daily life. Skip that coffee.
3 minutes, 2 minutes 59 of
Oh, you need a bit of time
blues
to go
rock
and
brilliance.
find it.
Yeah,
To
that's right.
find it. Yeah, yeah. Go definitely go and check it out. But yeah, I agree with you, Simon. It's just a phenomenal track, and that's all I'm going to say. Just go and listen to it. It's just brilliant. What Jesse has done on that intro and how he influenced Dwayne Allman, who was a guitar player, not a slide guitar player, as the rock
Yeah.
professor said, and took that band and then, influenced Eric Clapton to the point where he got him in to record the Layla album that the rock professor mentioned on the intro. You know, everything has a starting point. And we're not saying that this is the starting point, but jeepers, for half a dozen of those artists, Simon, that starting point is this track on this album.
For sure, yeah. And I think that's what its influence is. As you say, without Taj Mahal, no Greg Allman. Without Greg Allman, no Layla. I mean, because he came up with the two parts, didn't he? The slide guitar bit and the riff. That's they didn't have that before that, and so in a sense, Layla is what it is thanks to Greg Allman. Greg Allman is who he is thanks to Taj. I may be making this up a bit, but you
Oh
can
no,
see
I
him as a
think you're
line
right.
there, can't you?
I think
As
you're
a
right, Simon. Yeah,
as a
the
link.
Layla album without Dwayne Allman's influence or contribution to it would it'd be a good album.
Yeah.
We'd be listening to it today and we'd be saying it's a good album. But Dwayne Allman's influence on that album took it from being a good album to a modern masterpiece in our opinions. So much so that we often talk about the 3 or 4 shows that we did on
Yes,
it.
we did. Yeah, 2 or 3 shows. Yeah, yeah, three, wasn't it? I think it was three. So, so yeah, and as I say, it's kind of, then nobody really was doing it like this. I think the production is really modern. It's really because it's kind of, it's big and thick and cohesive, isn't it? It's not a lot of, I mean, a lot of records from this time can be quite, you know, because they didn't have much in the way of distortion and drive and things to fill up the sound. So, there's quite a lot of space in these records, and we talked a lot about space in records from this too. But this doesn't have much space in it. It's very kind of, it's up there, isn't it, as a sound. It's thick and a lot. The instrumentation does a lot, but as I say, to me, it's beautifully produced. I mean, really, he did a great job uh, uh, producing it. Did what's he called? I can't remember his name. Anyway, um, that Dave Rubinson and Bob Owen, they did a fantastic job so it sounds great, sounds contemporary, and has got that really kind of thick sound to it that that makes it a really great album to listen to. I think on modern stuff. Anyway, so that's States for Blues. Um, so the third track on this side is "Checking Up on My Baby," which is a Sonny Boy Williamson song, which again is a kind of it's more of a country sort of blues song. This, and I've listened to the original, but they kind of clearly one of their cues is the kind of Chicago blues sound, Muddy Waters and having guitars and pianos and things, and this is a track with a piano, and Jesse Edwin Davis plays lead guitar and piano on it. And again, you're talking about you know, nuance. You're talking about coloration, and you know, track three, we've got a piano on the track, to give it a bit of a different vibe. Um, Starts off with a lead guitar riff, and that's joined by sort of tinkling piano and things. And then before Taj comes in with his inimitable harp blast, taking a kind of solo, really great walking bass. I don't know, I'll talk about the bass a lot because it's pretty prominent on this record, the bass, and really gives it a bottom end, and lots of swinging drums with the ride cymbal going. Um, Again, the rhythm guitar is kind of that clicked, tink, clicked, and stunted sound that very clean as well. Um, you've got guitar picks up with lead lines responding to the vocals, kind of interplay between the guitar, classic interplay. And then you've got a harp solo with the piano playing as well, so it's not completely alone. And then you've got a guitar solo, great feel, and again a great sound. And he's a great player, Jesse Edwin Davis, and kind of they go around twice for that. And then you've got a kind of drop down for the next verse, and although the piano's still there, but it keeps going, and you've got more solo guitar under the vocals as well. I think they kind of build it up as a track, so those things happen in the second half of the track rather than the first half. Um, and then you've got a harp solo to the fade out at the end. 9 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. I think this is again really great, sort of a swinging number. Andrew.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal track, isn't it? The bass on this track is incredible. The harp, again, heavily influenced by the Chicago blues guys. You can hear the breakup on it when the harp has been played or through it or whatever you're listening, however you want to describe it. It's just phenomenal. And it also gives you this feeling because it's the second to longest track, just under 5 minutes. So what's really interesting about this is it gives me the sensation when you listen to it for a couple of minutes that it speeds up, but it's not. It doesn't. It's just one of those things that blues music does to you. And one of the powerful things about blues music, if it's played well, it gives you that impression that things are slowing up and slowing down. It might be, I don't know, but
Oh, I think it
certainly
does a
it's
bit. But,
yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I love the fact that this band is recording live in the studio. I'm I'm getting that impression anyway through it. And then the relationship that you have with the harmonica, the harp on this with the other instruments, it's phenomenal, and it gets better and better, folks. If you're a blues harp fan,
which I
love
know
the
you are.
solo, love the solo, 10 out of 10, never a skip, great track.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? To the comparison with the Robert Cray album from last week, which is clearly done, on the grid kind of thing, and I talk a lot about that, that line between when producers started using click tracks and using, electronic to keep you in time and stuff, which makes building up the tracks easier, much easier, because you've got something that stays in time, goes from beginning to end. You're good. Whereas this is clearly people standing around in a studio playing together, I would say, without a shadow of a doubt. And I've said it on this show before. Worth bearing repeating. I think that for me, that speeding up and slowing down, that gives it a human quality that I really like. And I think that if you've grown up with that, that's what you really like. That's what I respond to that more than I respond to later records that have been done on the grid. Somewhere in me, there's that thing about they don't quite swing in the same way. I think people have got better at it now because I think the drummers have managed to, understand how to play on the grid, but can play round that click track beat, so it doesn't, so it's kind of different. But for me, because I grew up with records made this way and bands playing this way, where they sped up and slowed down, that for me that gets like breathing, breathe in, breathe out kind of thing, gives it a human quality that maybe I'd be interested to hear younger people's version of this. That I notice, for instance, my wife, who's 5 years younger than me, and my kids, they prefer that kind of on the grid sound. They prefer it to be like that, and they think the music I listen to wobbles about a bit. It's a bit woozy. But I'd be interested to see if anyone, got any comments about that. That's kind of where my feeling is. But this is right in my wheelhouse for for that sort of thing, that kind of slightly speeding up and slowing down. But because it gives it a feel, gives it an emotion. I think maybe those things don't quite have. Maybe they do. I'm missing it. Anyway, the last track on side one is that Everybody's Got to Change Sometime by Sleepy John Estes, who's a bit of a fixture on this record. He's done the first track on this one, so half of side one is a. I don't know if he was still alive to receive a few pounds from Taj's royalties, but this is a kind of up tempo blues. No harp this time. Interestingly, it's a much more kind of straightforward. Two guitars, bass, drums, and singing. That's with some bit of some stack soul feel in it as well, that kind of soul thing. Drum roll into the song, and again you've got that kind of walking bass, which just he's fine bass player, and pretty straight drums, and sort of semi-spoken vocals as well. It's kind of got that kind of semi-spoken vocal style in this. Again, that kind of clipped, clean rhythm guitar that Raikou was playing as well. But Jess Edwin Davis playing those lead lines under the singing, just a bit further back in the mix, kind of thing, and a nice solo with some tremendous vibrato. It's very very evident, and Taj Mahal singing, saying, "Smoke that guitar, boy, smoke that guitar," and he certainly does. Before the 9 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Great ending to the first side. Andrew.
Awesome. Gretch, are you referring to the funk and Everybody's Got to Change Sometime? Is that what you're referring to? Because I kind of agree with you. I love the classic blues intro that you've got on this, and again the bass coming through is phenomenal on this track, and the vocal style of Taj Mahal coming through on this track's a little bit different, and we get a little bit of that again on side two. I've given this 8 out of 10. Probably the best place for this track on the end of side one, but in no way, I've got to make that clear, in no way is that 8 in any way hinting at any kind of a skip. Never.
Never a skip.
Never a skip. Thank you, Gretch. Yeah, so, yeah, got a bit of funk going on in the first track and this track. Definitely knows where the music, and if you go and listen to some of his albums from the early 70s, I can't remember there's a couple there, definitely got a bit of that funk thing going, but
and he incorporated all that world music into his stuff later, didn't he? So.
That's right. All part of the scene that was happening with black artists back then. So this, ladies and gentlemen, gets us to the point where we are going to flick through some pics.
Photos.
So we get some pics. I forgot to tell you folks, we are streaming here, but we're also streaming on 2 of our Facebook groups, All About the Blues and our Eric Clapton Facebook page. So if you are watching from there, say hi. Okay, so the rock professor was very kind to show us. Hold on.
Hold on. Behind us.
Yes, it's behind us. So just give me a second. I'm going to hold on. What did I do here, Simon?
What's that? Morning,
Um,
Arvin. Morning, Greg. So I'll say
what I'm
while
gonna
you're doing that, go on.
you can talk, and I'm gonna just grab my phone and I'll upload those onto
Okay.
overlay. Give me
Okay.
2
No worries.
minutes.
Hold on. Yeah. Okay. So while I'll say good morning to Gretch and Hugh Caldwell, John ZD351. Morning, team. Jimmy Ray Hawkins from sunny Orange County. Arvin as well. Morning, all. Hope you're all good. We're having a good Easter weekend. If you're lucky, you've got a chocolate bunny. That's not actually mine. Andrew insisted that we should get a chocolate bunny to show. So I've got one, but for the kids, not for me. That's for certain. So yeah, I hope you're all having a great Easter. It's and I hope you've had a chance to listen to this record as well, because I think I've got his first four, so his kind of quite blues-based records. But in my world, I think this is quite a seminal record, really, in terms of its sound, in terms of what he's trying to do. Not many people doing it before him. One or two, maybe the Paul Butterfield Blues Band a bit, but they don't sound like this too much. This has got an element of kind of modern kind of rock sound to it. That certainly some of the tracks coming up, we can talk about that in more detail. So yeah, it's as I say, I'm quite interested on this channel in examining some of the byways of the blues rock world, and you know, Taj Mahal may not be a name familiar to everyone, but I think this album definitely should be, uh, on your list of things.
Sorry about that. It's what happens when you try and edit for a show on your phone. I upload the photos as background, so just give me 2 seconds. Thank you, Simon. Give me 2 seconds, and I will just change that. So, as the Rock Professor did for you guys live, and if you're watching on replay, again, that's one of the
There we are.
covers. There's a couple of versions of the covers. That's slightly different from the Rock Professor's version.
I've got just to show, where are we? See, I've got sort of, I don't know what these guys like, sort of animals or something, kind of like so
Yeah.
as they've been stickered on afterwards, but
Yeah.
they haven't. Birds and butterflies and things, and a dodo. There's a dodo in the.
Yeah, dead as a dodo. So there's a couple of stills from '69. That's Taj playing a resonator, and obviously
right.
bit of a expert on that. And the guitar player standing next to him is Jesse.
Jesse Edwin Davis, yeah.
It's a pick again from '68, from the era. You can see clearly that Taj is looking pretty cool. He's got that cool look going on there, Simon.
Yeah. He's a dude, all right. That's for sure.
And there he is from '68. He's got the John Lennon and the Keith Richards glasses going on there, which were popular at the time. One of the tracks on side 2 features, and we won't talk about it, we'll just wait till we get to it, but features Ry Cooder, and that's a young, fresh-looking Ry Cooder in the studio with Taj.
Ryland Peter Cooder.
And we all know that Ry Cooder heavily influential with and around the Rolling Stones on Beggar's Banquet. And what's the one? Let It Bleed as well, Simon?
Yeah, Let It Bleed, yeah. It's definitely in there. And, he started off doing that kind of blues thing as well, didn't he, Ry Cooder? His first few solo albums are in that genre. Something
And a
we ought to
master
rank.
slide player. A master slide player in his own right.
Yep. That's right.
There's a couple of pics here of the guitar player. So this is Ronnie Wood, obviously from a band called the Rolling Stones. And that's Jesse there. So if you guys weren't aware of it, I must admit, when I was a young fellow and interested in listening to this album, I assumed because Taj was black that everybody else in the band would be black, and it wasn't until a couple of years later where again having a conversation, you find out actually the guy's a North American Indian.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, native North American.
So go and he's got some solo albums that he released. But again, his contribution to this album, as Simon said in the intro, can't be underestimated. And here's the last pick for you guys. So he featured the Bangladesh concert, and there he is there with Klaus Verman, George Harrison, Eric Clapton in '71. If you've seen that film, you'll see him playing and you get blown away. He's just phenomenal guitar player, Simon. Phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, he is. Yeah, yeah. I'd say sort of not spoken about much these days. I think because he died so young, 88. It was kind of but yeah, I think particularly on this record, and particularly, kind of, leading the way, wasn't he? One of the people in the forefront of this kind of new blues rock phenomenon, taking the blues into a new direction.
Hey, Arvin, good to see you, bro. And we've got Greg Roberts tune in here too as well, Simon.
Morning, Greg. How you doing? Hope you're good. Thanks for joining, team man. Yeah, Arvin loves this
Awesome.
record. So that's just fantastic.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that Arvin would love this record and would know this album. I'm not surprised at all.
No, me neither. Might have known. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so we'll move on to side two. So the opening track on side yeah, sorry, on side two is Easy Rider, which again has a kind of 12-bar structure to it. And interestingly, I thought that if you play the previous track and this, the riffs are quite similar. They're quite similar riffs, and they seem to fit together. I thought that was a pretty cool piece of programming. I don't know who did it, but you tell you've got to have an echo of the previous track, kind of thing. That was pretty good. I got a very definitely a touch of Otis Redding in this kind of in the singing. And again, that there is a kind of overlay of Stax on some of these tracks, Stax records. Steve Cropper, that very clean kind of clipped guitar is very Steve Cropper like, and which Rye is doing. Again, this goes into like a really nice swinging groove with those sort of clipped stabbing guitars. Again, steady bass on this one, just playing the root notes, just laying it down, keeping the bottom end going on. Nice harp solo, and again, he's a great singer, isn't he? He's a great singer. With quite a lot of grit in the voice. A lot of power there, a lot of power. So to give you lots of dynamic range in the singing, and one of these at the end there's a solo that I thought was really quite a rock solo. All of a sudden, I thought the previous stuff is quite very blues, welded in, started in the blues, that blues thing, but this is more of a rock solo. I thought the sound and what he plays is definitely more of a kind of rock thing, taking it forward, which I thought was really interesting. And Taj Mahal referencing the killing floor as well. So remember, this is all it's all pretty much pre Hendrix and stuff. So it's kind of it's a great solo, and I think that that for that reason I've given it a 9 out of 10, because I think that solo takes it to a new place and does something a bit different that they haven't done before. Andrew.
Yeah. Arvin's had this album for so long. Yeah. I just want to sort of echo what me too. At least 20 years, at least, maybe longer.
Oh, over 40.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just showing off there. I'm just showing off there.
Definitely a key album to be talking about. And Greg Rogovitz, as always, thank you guys. if you've listened to the album and you want to drop some rankings in, please do. Otherwise, maybe on the video afterwards, drop some in. Um, I'm not going to say a lot about this track, other than echo what Rock Professor said. There's a lot of guitar work going on this number. There's a lot of guitar work going on, and it's quite interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if 3 guitar players are playing on this. There's there's a lot of and it's not clashing in any way, but there's a lot going on, and that's really, really cool. And again, the blues harp on this, the way that Taj contributes to the blues harp on this track, took it from what I would probably give to a 7, Simon, up to an 8. But I have to echo again what you said about the modern elements. And each number on this album has those little bits of modern elements, and again, I think it's a testament to the remarkable ability that Taj was having at that time in '67 to incorporate bits of those. And the Rock Professors mentioned Jimi Hendrix, and I'll talk a little bit more about him in the conclusion, because there's a point I think that Simon is making that needs to be sort of elaborated on, as we like to do. But I've given this an 8 out of 10, Simon. Following on from the 8 out of 10 from the previous number, backing up what you're saying about there being no super contrasts between the 2 tracks. No super contrasts. And that's not a bad thing.
No. But remember, in the old days, you'd have to get up and change the side to put on the second side. So you have that kind of natural gap, with if you kind of reset yourself when you turn it over. So it's only when I only really realised it when I was playing it on Spotify, and of course it runs from one track to the next. I thought they're pretty similar, aren't they? I wouldn't have noticed that necessarily if having to get up, turn it over, and then put it, drop that sort of minute and a half that you have to do that doesn't it means you reset, so you don't hear it so much. Anyway, so track 2 on side 2 is the great Dust My Broom by Robert Johnson, and originally recorded in 1936 by Robert Johnson, and of course Elmore James recorded it and made it the classic we all know, kind of thing, with that slide guitar figure that has become infamous, ubiquitous, omnipresent in lots of blues all over the place. It's very nice. It's one of the most famous riffs in this version. The drums and the bass and the harp are very prominent. They're at the front. The slide guitar bit is a bit back in the mix, but it's still nevertheless there. Do it. It's great. It's got a great swing to it, this track, and I think they absolutely take that swing on and make it groove along fantastically, with some bit of piano tinkling in the background as well, a bit of extra color. The slide playing, call and response, with the singing in the classic blues fashion, and then you've got a 1:15. You've got the slide plays, then the piano plays before, and then the harp comes in for a solo, with the piano playing under the harp, and you've got more call and response with the voice, guitar, and piano. So you've got like a 3-way call and response going on there in the latter half of the song, which is a bit more than you normally get. I think this is a great version of this. I give it 10 out of 10. It's that takes it and makes it what we all know. Andrew.
What are you talking about, Greg? In the monument, are you talking about Taj Mahal being a monument to some dude's wife, or you're talking about?
That's right. Yes.
Or were you
wife.
talking about sending your wife and family to Austria to save on some Easter eggs? How does that work?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. All right. You got to be
But
Greg to
yeah,
know. Yeah. So the Taj Mahal we're talking about is.
in Agra was built by the fifth emperor Shah Jahan to
No, we're not talking
house
about that Taj
the tomb
Mahal.
of his
The
beloved
Taj
wife.
Mahal we're talking about is this one.
Yes,
The-
that one. That's not a tomb to house his dead wife.
no. We're
Oh
not going to
dear.
give you. We're not going to give you a history lesson on the Taj Mahal, other than this Taj Mahal. So go and watch another channel and find out about that Taj Mahal. Um, uh, that's my broom. Look, it's up there with Statesboro Blues. If you're a slide guitar player, it's definitely a manifesto song. All the versions of Dust My Broom that I've heard have been all fantastic, all different. It's etched into my mind. Um, the list of people covering this track, for a lot of reasons, is really, really important. So go and check it out. And what's really interesting about this particular track is that the opening riff that's normally conducted by the slide guitar itself is actually Taj Mahal playing the riff on his harp. So that in itself is unique and really, really good. He does that phenomenally well, and then you can hear, and then Jesse comes in. I'm assuming it's Jesse coming in and just plays underneath those last notes. So it's fantastic. There's been a couple of points in a few shows that I've made mention about some slide guitar players playing lots of notes and it comes through to get that real Chicago boomy sound. But sometimes it's really nice to hear a slide player just play a couple of delicate notes. And this is what's happening on this track, Simon. So again, Jesse is
Yeah.
just fantastic, playing those beautiful notes. The pulse of the song is pushed forward by that phenomenal rhythm section, and they're not doing anything out of the ordinary. They are just playing classic 12-bar blues, and it's just phenomenal. If you're a bass player, the rock professor mentioned it. We've all got bass guitars. Go and jam along to every single one of these tracks, and learn how to play, because you can hear, as the rock professor said, the bass coming through. So there's no mistake. Phenomenal album, phenomenal track. Um, Glad you picked it, Simon. Um,
Yeah.
and I love the interweaving. We talk about the Stones. The Stones talk about the interweaving, Simon, between the two guitar players. How many times have we mentioned that? How many times has Keith Richards talked about that being crucial to the Rolling Stones? Well, I think the harp and the guitars on this album, the way that they interweave, it's just a phenomenal experience. I think we should talk about it often, when we're doing shows in the future. As a reference point, we need to go back to this album as one of those albums, Simon, where it does it phenomenally
Mm.
well. I've given this 10 out of 10, and by gosh, Simon, it's never a skip.
Absolutely not. Yeah, travesty. It's really interesting what you say about that. That's that kind of interweaving that they do here. As I said earlier, that interweaving with the voice, the guitar, and the piano, the three things together, kind of thing, it kind of takes it one stage further, doesn't it? With the, so yeah, great version of the song, and see makes it his own. Anyway, so the next track is Diving Duck Blues, another song by Sleepy John Estes. Um, he's all over this record in terms of his songs. I hope he made a pound or two before. So this just has it's basically a four-piece lead guitar and guitar bass, but it has Bill Boatman on rhythm guitar rather than Ry Cooder, apparently. Um, so this is interesting. This is definitely kind of more of the rock thing to me. It's got kind of definitely more of a rock riff to start. It kind of reminded me and kind of vibe it of Lazy by Deep Purple. Had that kind of, to me, it had a kind of similar vibe. Deep Purple had a similar vibe to this. Definitely after. Much quite a straight rock beat. Again, the bass plays the riff with the guitar, but kind of right up front in the mix, which is where it is on this record. And yeah, has a kind of um, has a great guitar solo as well, but definitely more of a rock guitar solo than a straightforward blues solo. It's a kind of contrast to what we've just had in terms of a vibe and feel. One of the lesser tracks on the album, I think, 8.5 out of 10 from me, but not a skip. I wouldn't skip it. It's only 2.5 minutes long. It's fine. Andrew.
Who's watching from Facebook? Can you let us know? Because StreamYards is just saying Facebook user. So if you're somebody we know and you want us to do a shout out, drop your name in, please. That'll be really, really cool. Driving Duck Blues, fantastic track, isn't it? The Rock Professor's just given you some reasons why it's fantastic, and I'm going to say check it out because there's a different vocal style going on here with Taj. And it's by contrast to the previous track, it's remarkable on this one here. And also, I've just spent 30 seconds telling you about how great the bass is on the previous track. If you listen to the bass on this track, there's a different technique. They're plucking the notes as opposed to playing it what I would call normally, if that makes any sense. So I'm kind of thinking maybe it's an acoustic bass. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I didn't get that impression that it was an acoustic bass. Normally you can tell that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's definitely a bit of a pluck going on there. Let me know what you think if you're watching on playback and you are a bass player. Come on. We want to do a bass players show. I've been asking for bass players to come on. We need to do a bass players show. I agree with the song. I agree with the Rock Professor. There's a new urban blues feel sort of trying to come out of this track that just doesn't quite crack it. But I get what it's trying to do, Simon. I've only given it a 9 out of 10, but never a skip. But it's trying to do something that it just can't quite do that other tracks do really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Including the next track.
I'm trying to do this. Yes, the last track, which is I'm sorry, I'm trying to accede to Greg's wish, and I'll put come on. There we go. There you go, Greg. There's a link to it on YouTube, the album. Yeah. So the last track is the longest on the album. It's called "The Celebrated Walking Blues," which is nearly 9 minutes long. It's just got basic. Well, it has the band on it. It has Raikkonen is playing mandolin on this, and Taj Mahal is playing slide guitar, the old resonated guitar that Andrew was showing a picture of earlier, and harp. It starts off just with the slide and the harp playing pretty slowly, chugging along. That kind of slow turnaround at the beginning. And I thought, oh look, this is where C6 Steve got his whole act from. Kind of, you know what I mean? It's just that kind of quite thick, kind of slightly distorted guitar sound. Yes, and just some vocals, maybe a bit of harp. I say quite driven guitar. Quite, has some grit to it with that playing slide. And he's very gravelly, masculine, and gritty vocals, which is fantastic. Great singing, and then the mandolin joins just to give some more color to it, which is great. And that kind of, and then you've got the guitar on the right and the mandolin on the left in the mix, and with the vocals in the middle, and they play for a verse, and then you get the bass and the drums join in at about 2 minutes 12. There's and then you've got they continue to play very steadily. There's no kind of flash in the bass and the drums there. They're very straight. And they don't do very much. Quite minimalistic playing between them. And you've got Hart, his great Hart playing, which he plays in between the vocals. So he's doing a kind of call and response with himself. And at 418, you've got that slide solo, which is Taj Mahal playing the slide this time. It's great. It's kind of lesson in kind of gentle building up, isn't it? You start off just with the guitar and then the mandolin, and then the bass and the drums. That you know gradually get into it, and as I say, it kind of it's a slow kind of but it's kind of very hypnotic and kind of you get drawn in by the story and the story of you know I mean he references all sorts of places, Memphis, Clarksdale, Rolling Fork, Chula, all these places that clearly he's leaving. um, I think it's an amazing track, really, and kind of really stretching out and really you know showing what can be done with in those days. So I gave it a 10 out of 10. Never a skip. Fantastic closing track on the album. Andrew.
Yeah, where do I start with this track? It's just phenomenal. First time I heard it, I was blown away. I was a youngish man. So I kind of got where this track was going, Simon. Was excited and to listen to it. I have this album on a playlist, Simon. I probably listen to it about 10 times a year. It's a phenomenal track. And as the rock professor said, it starts off and you could swear that you're listening to a 1950s Muddy Waters recording session. You can bet your bottom dollar. You think, holy cow, this is authentic. This stuff can't be faked, and it's not. And then you get sneaked up on, hey Derek, by a mandolin. And you're right, Gretch, it is a mandolin, and kind of blew me away. And I remember thinking back in the day, wow. But had a couple of friends that sort of steered me in the right direction. So if you're not aware of it, guys, the mandolin has been a big part of the blues tradition in America, but kind of doesn't get discussed or focused on because the guitar is the premier instrument. But there's a guy called Yank Ratchell who played blues mandolin, who went on to influence not necessarily the style of Ry Cooder, but Ry
Hmm.
Cooder's music anyway. So the fact that Ry Cooder is putting this instrument into this track, Simon, is very much part of the blues tradition. It's not something that, oh, okay, we did this with the Rolling Stones, or I did this with the Rolling Stones, I'm going to throw it in here. It's definitely part of that tradition. Didn't know it at the time, but obviously know it now. And I just think the way that it comes in, it just creeps in behind that distortion, that authentic Chicago blues sound. It's just a wonderful thing. If you haven't checked it out, Greg, I don't think you have. Go and check it out and get back to us next week, especially with what you think about this track, not necessarily everything else that we've discussed. One of the best tracks ever recorded, in my opinion. I think it's definitely an example of the genius that these guys did back in 1967, Simon. It's just phenomenal. And
Yeah.
to have Ry Cooder be involved in it, again, it's mind blowing. And I don't think that they knew at the time that they were probably recording something that, guys like us would go, wow. I don't, in all honesty, I don't think they would have realised how
No, I don't
important
know.
this
They just
album
went in the
is.
studio and did it, didn't they? They just went in the studio and
Yeah,
recorded. These are the songs we're doing, and this is how, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I've given this a Brad score. Um, definitely Brad score, Simon. It's never a skip. It's this and Statesboro Blues. If you're going to listen to two tracks, it'll be this track and Statesboro Blues.
Indeed.
Phenomenal
Yeah,
tracks.
yeah. I'd agree with that. It is an extraordinary track, isn't it? As a close. You're right. Oh, but yeah. So yes, I don't know if you know. 4 tracks aside, 33 minutes for the album, 16 minutes aside. I'm funniest, I've never felt like that was shortchanging anyone, and that was too short or whatever. I prefer 33 minutes of brilliance rather than 70 minutes of 33 minutes of brilliance. That's
As the rock
33
professors.
minutes of. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
I froze, did? Well, I
You,
did
you,
freeze
you,
for a sec.
you just froze. Sorry, slow
That's
tonight. Yeah, yeah. Who knows? It's Easter weekend. We'll blame the Easter eggs. But Simon, thank you for picking this album. It's definitely
good. Yeah.
one of the great. So you remember we did this. Remember we did the Johnny Winter album with Muddy Waters.
Hmm.
So this. I put this album and that album as standalone shows, if you know what I mean. And maybe I'll
Hmm.
need to do a separate playlist on the channel for those kind of shows. But yeah, Taj Mahal and his band. What a tight band, Simon.
Well, it's we talk about this a lot, don't we? As um, that whole thing of you play in the play in the studio together, you play gigs, you go out and play. You get a tightness, you get a togetherness that you need to have. Like the Stones, the Zeppelin, anybody we talk about that records in this era is doing it live in the studio, aren't they? The basics all done live in the studio, and very little overdubbing, but gives them a unique kind of vibe. And I think that there's you've had a lot of modern producers go in now and you build up tracks and things like that. It's you know people, I think people expect they can go in a studio now and kind of you know fix it, build it, fix it, kind of as you go along, kind of thing. Whereas these guys, it's you know you practiced and you practiced, and when you had it, you did gigs, and then you went in and recorded it. But it's pretty much as what you were doing live,
Yeah, yeah,
which I
awesome.
think is yeah,
Thank you, Simon, for picking that. Greg, yeah, he's got some
good.
family stuff, bits and pieces that he's doing, but I can guarantee, well, we can't guarantee anything, can we? But no, he's he's going to be joining us next week. I'm going to pick a Clapton album for us to rank. So if you hit the notifications, guys, I'll put a show card up for the album that we're going to pick, and that's to celebrate Mr. Clapton's last year in his 70s. Simon.
I know, worrying.
So this time next year we'll be doing probably a 3 hour or 4 hour Clapton tribute show when he turns
Ooh,
80.
oh blimey! See, when he turns 80. Oh dear,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
quite scary, isn't it? And it's quite scary as a thing. So Eric will be 80,
Wow.
and then Jimmy Page will be 80 at some point, won't he? And things.
Wow.
They'll all be catching up. Oh. and Keith as
No.
well. He's not quite it, is he? Mm.
Oh, awesome. Wherever you are, you know, it's Easter Sunday here in New Zealand. So make sure you get some Easter eggs, Easter bunnies.
something to jump on. Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if you're not already subscribed to our channel, please do. We're always asking you to subscribe to our channel to help, you know, spread the word.
Yeah.
And remember that every subscriber that subscribes back to us, we subscribe back. So I promise we do that.
Mm.
There's one in every crowd.
Good morning,
You know
Mission
what?
RD100.
Yes, I know who Mission is.
Ah.
I know who Mission is. He's based in the UK.
Oh.
We have had some correspondence, if I remember rightly, and we were So Mission, do you want to join us for that show?
Ooh,
If you're
what if
still
we do one?
here,
There's one in every crowd. Yeah.
we haven't done that.
Is he game?
We haven't done that.
We haven't, have we? I don't think we have.
No. So okay, we'll pick that. We'll do. There's one in every crowd. Be an interesting album. It'll be actually yes.
This show, Mission.
this
This
show.
next Sunday, this time, talking ranking the tracks on There's One in Every Crowd.
Yeah.
What say you?
If I may
want
have you, I may have you mixed up with somebody else. I'm sorry if that's. Have you emailed me? I may have you mixed up with somebody else. If you haven't emailed me, I have. And my apologies. We'll just wait for the answer and then we'll end the show. But yeah. There's one in every crowd, Simon. I may pick that. I will consult with you over the next couple of days, but I think I have.
Certainly. One in every crowd is fine.
Yeah, I think I have confused Mission RD100 with somebody else. My apologies. Simon, do you want to go through and say goodbye to everybody in the chat?
Yeah. Well, we'll say thanks to Mission RD100. Apologies if we mixed you up with somebody else. But Crappy Luxury, just dropped a comment in there. Morning, Crappy. Arvin, of course. Good morning, Arvin. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining. Jimmy Ray Hawkins. We'll go to bed now in America. Greg Zeppelin, Arvin, Jimmy Ray, Greg Roberts Tune. Thanks, Greg, for dropping by. Good to see you. Who else did we have? We had John ZD351 earlier. Try to get everyone. It'd be bad to miss somebody out, wouldn't it? Great. It's Hugh Caldwell. Hugh, good to see you, man. Hope you're well. Having a nice Easter. I think hopefully that's everyone that made a comment. Thank you all for your and Derek Clacton as well. Of course, Derek, who just popped in to say he'd be catching up later.
And he always
Have
does.
a good one, Derek. Thank you so much.
We want to do a special shout out to Ellen too, who is normally here with us, but obviously she's eating Easter eggs, Simon.
Clearly she is. With Brad.
My apologies, Mission RD. I did get you confused with another guy from the UK. I'm normally pretty good, but my apologies. Crappy Luxury, he approves. He approves with the album. So, okay, there's one in every crowd. We'll do that, Simon.
Excellent. Chosen for us. Well done. Thank you, Mission. Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you, Rock Professor, for picking a great album.
Glad you enjoyed it. It's as I say, and those people who haven't heard it, and there's a few people in the chat who haven't. Hopefully, you can go and enjoy it, and it is a great record. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we're out of here.
And we'll see you next week.
To eat.
Have a lovely Easter. Take care. Take it away, boss.